What's happening, guys? It's Boxing Lowdown here, and welcome to episode number 24 for the Boxing Lowdown podcast. You know how we do it. Your host right here, the Boxing Lowdown, as always, and I'm joined once again by my co-host, Mr. Laurie from AFTV. What's going on?
You know that combination, right?
Whose combination was that?
That was my little tribute to Alexander Povetkin. He threw the jab, slipped in underneath, come up. And
that was brilliant how he got that KO.
Sorry?
The way how he worked that KO was brilliant, wasn't it?
Oh, wow. You know what, as saddened as I was to see Dillian stretched out like that, you had to give Alexander Povetkin all the credit in the world for the execution of that combination. Was just superb. That was textbook stuff, man. And can you believe that some people were saying that was a lucky punch? I mean, clearly they don't know boxing. You know what I mean? The way he set that up was a thing of beauty. Although, like I said, I was sad for Dillian to be on the end of such, as you like to say, beautiful violence. But wow. But anyway, I guess we'll be getting onto that later.
So no doubt, man, we've got another great show today. We're going to be talking about it. You know what I mean? Everybody that comes in through the chat, you know how we do. Drop your comments, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, get the video out there to as much people as you can. You know how we do it. We keep it real over here, man. We talk our talk, and we let others have their opinion, and we comment on everyone, you know, who leaves a comment. So leave your comments in, subscribe, and let's get it moving, man. We've got a jam-packed show today. And as I say that, we've got a comment already. My guy, Ian Hamilton, straight here in the chat, he's put, yes, one of my favorite times of the week. Let's go. Let's go. Number one, baby. We're going to be talking about
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go, Deontay. Let's go.
we're going to talk about it, man. We've got a jam-packed show today. And you know what? Last week, your comments about Dimitri Bivol, after the show, a few people messaged me and was like, you know what, your dad's got a bit of a point there. And it rattled Shane, obviously. He wasn't on the show, but he was rattled by it. And I sent him the link today. So if he wants to come on, he's got the option of coming on. I sent him the link. So we'll see if he does or not. But
not only was Shane rattled, he actually texted me. I think he was a bit salty with me, man. I don't think he appreciated the way he thought I was calling him out for smoke. But I wasn't really, it wasn't not a dig against Shane, but I know that Shane, he's a big fan of Dimitri Bivol's, which I've got no problem with per se. But I was just making the point that this guy's been, shall we say, languishing around, man. You know what I mean? Even though he's got a strap, his career has been hidden in plain sight. And I'm saying, yo, man, why aren't you out there calling man out? Why are you not out there trying to make the fight with Beterbiev? You know what I mean? And I just spoke what was on my mind. And Shane, to be fair, he did reach out to me and said he wanted a chance to come on and defend himself. So you've given him that platform. So come on, Shane, where are you? Doing that Billy Joe thing.
Let's get into it, man. I mean, we've got a jam-packed show today. And, I wanted to start off with, obviously, the rematch. Do you know what I mean? Alexander Povetkin and Dillian Whyte taking place in Gibraltar, the Rumble on the Rock. Now, as we know, you know what I mean, they had a fight back in August of last year. Dillian Whyte, up until the ending, was looking great, in my opinion. He was all over Povetkin. He dropped him twice. It was even looking like going into the fifth round that Dillian Whyte was going to end matters. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Povetkin, drew a beautiful punch and it took Dillian Whyte out. You know what I mean? That's the beauty of boxing. That's the beauty of the heavyweight division. Now we're in end of March. And these two were supposed to get it on in November. That got postponed. They were supposed to get it on in January. That got postponed. And we're here now. So we're at the rematch. What's your thoughts about it, man? We're going to do a preview on that right now. Povetkin against Whyte 2. What's your thoughts going into this rematch?
Well, you know what? My thoughts haven't changed that much since the first fight. Since before the first fight, I'd always thought of this as a very dangerous fight for Dillian. I was a bit perplexed at why he took that fight with Povetkin, because, I mean, if we go back to August last year, Dillian was in a very favorable position with the WBC and some of the other governing bodies. He'd worked himself into pretty much a mandatory slot. And he decided to mark time with a fight. Now, listen, I ain't got no problem with a guy marking time with a fight because he's a fighter and he wants to fight regularly and make money and all the rest of it. I understood that. But when I saw that he'd selected Povetkin as the opponent, I was like, wow, man, that's a very risky strategy. So I was always very wary. And to the fight itself, yes, you're right. Dillian was doing well, but I always felt that as long as Povetkin was around, that he would be dangerous. You know what I mean? And you could see, even though Dillian had dropped him a couple of times and appeared to be in the ascendancy, every round you could see that Povetkin had landed a couple of punches and he was still in the fight. So I was still nervous about that, you know what I mean? And then, of course, we saw what happened in the end there with that shot that put Dillian away. You know what I mean, like I said before, it was a thing of beauty the way he moved Dillian into position and then executed that shot. And you know what? I still feel the same way this time, man. Extremely high-risk fight. But I guess this time, Dillian felt that he had to take this fight, whereas the first time, I was surprised that he sought out Povetkin, put it that way.
Yeah, man. I'll give my thoughts on it. We'll just quickly go to some comments here. Big up everybody in the comment section. Conrad Boxon has put here, Shane defended Bivol on Jeff's show. So, yeah, that really rattled him, that did, didn't it?
Yeah.
Daniel Latty, big up my bro, Daniel Latty. He's put here, White kind of has to win this. I don't know where he goes after this if he loses. Ruiz, maybe. Big up my guy, Mohammed Zishan in the chat here. This guy produces my thumbnails. Anybody, if you want to get your graphics done, want to get thumbnails done, hit up Mohammed Zishan, man. He'll do that for you. And he's put here, Dillian Whyte just needs to be a lot more cautious this time and stay out of range from Povetkin and not go up close and trade. Yeah, like going back to Daniel's comment here, Whyte does have to win this, doesn't he? He does have to win this, because if he doesn't, it's really like back to the drawing board for him, isn't it?
Yeah, if he doesn't win this one, man, his career at the top level anyway, you would imagine, is pretty much done. So, yeah, he has to win. And I think, and not only that, he kind of has to win impressively as well because of the way he lost that first fight. And to be fair to Dillian, he's approached it in a very positive way. He's saying that he's going to go out looking for the knockout. So that would suggest that he's not going to be cautious, or if he is going to be cautious, he's going to be quite strategic. So, yeah, I mean, I would have thought that the game plan would be not to take too many risks early, but, you know, try and establish a jab. And if you do hurt Povetkin, you've got to try and get him out of there, man, without being too reckless. Because you can't afford to have a guy like this hanging around for too long, man. You know what I mean, as we know, he fought Joshua and he lost. He's one of only 2 defeats he's got on his record. The other one was to a prime Vladimir Klitschko. So there's no disgrace there. But even if you remember, when he fought Joshua, he gave Joshua a few problems in that fight, didn't he?
Yeah.
He blooded his nose and had Joshua looking a bit uncomfortable at times. And of course, we saw what he did to David Price. And that was after he'd been seriously hurt by David Price as well. So he does have the knack of coming back, man. And listen, we shouldn't underestimate Povetkin's skills. You're talking about a former world champion himself and an Olympic gold medalist. So, you know what I mean? He's no slouch. And yes, he's getting a bit old, but, you know what I mean? He's still dangerous because he can punch with either hand, I might add.
What do you think the mindset is for Dillian Whyte going into this? Because you're going to be facing a man that knocked you spark out. Do you know what I mean? Like, he knocked you, he put you to sleep. So surely going into the rematch there, that's going to be in his head. Do you know what I mean? I remember when Lennox Lewis got knocked out by Oliver McCall. It took him a while for him to become, you know, he was a bit gun-shy after that. Do you think that could be the case with Dillian Whyte? If he gets Povetkin going, will he go straight in for the kill, or do you think that he might be a bit more cautious? I know that Mohammed has said here that he needs to be more cautious this time. Conrad has said that he looks really big, Povetkin. I haven't seen that yet. But, I mean, what is it going to be like for him standing across the ring again from a guy who has knocked him out?
Well, I would imagine he's going to have a few butterflies, but that could be a good thing, you know. It could heighten his awareness and make him a little bit more ready, you know what I mean, for what's in front of him. Because, like I said, he cannot afford to relax for 1 minute in this fight. Because, like I said before, Povetkin is very experienced, he's very talented, and he can punch, which means he's going to be in it right till the end. And I have to say, I don't see this fight going to points, you know. I just don't see it.
Knocked out.
Yeah, so I think for either man, they're going to be eyeing up the knockout. But yeah, you know what? It's an intriguing fight. Put it that way. It's an intriguing fight. I'm looking forward to it.
Big up my guy Ian Hamilton here. He's put no word of a lie. I'll be nervous after that first bell on Saturday. I'd love Dillian to do it the way Lennox did in the Rahman rematch. It would be emphatic. I really hope Dillian does it. Can he do it though? Can he do it? Can anyone? I mean, Joshua knocked out Povetkin. You know, but Dillian, I don't know, man. I mean, he's shown he can drop Povetkin. He's shown he can hurt him. And let's be honest, up until the ending, Povetkin to me was looking like an old man in there. He did look old to me.
I think you're right there.
It affected him.
Yeah, you're right there. I mean, he is in his 40s, his early 40s. The gas tank isn't as good as it once was. And let's be honest, with Povetkin's build, he's quite stocky and powerful, you know what I mean? So those guys tend not to have the greatest of staminas, you know what I mean? But like I said, he's experienced, he knows what he's doing, he's got skills, and crucially, he can punch with either hand. That to me represents a real risk for Dillian because Dillian can get a bit sloppy. As the rounds go on, I notice that Dillian can look a bit ungainly in there, you know what I mean? His footwork isn't great. He can sometimes look off balance when he throws his shots. And Dillian does appear to have a bit of a stamina problem himself. Have you noticed that? He does tend to tire. So I would say that rounds 1 to 8 is where he's probably going to have his best moments. And I think that he needs to try and get Povetkin out of there. If he hurts him, I'm not saying to just throw your hands recklessly, but he's got to try and make a concerted effort in trying to get Povetkin out of there because, like I said, you don't want a guy like this hanging around for too long because I would imagine that Povetkin's probably thinking to himself he's not going to get a decision in this country. Don't you think that?
Probably, yeah.
Povetkin's going to be thinking they're not going to give me a decision, so I'm going to have to try and nail him. So Povetkin probably won't, given his age and his experience, he's probably not going to be too perturbed or alarmed to be 2, 3, 4 rounds down on the cards because I think his strategy will be he wants to take Dillian out. He's thinking, I've done it before, I did it emphatically, and I can do it again. I'm sure that's his mindset going into this fight.
Conrad Boxner said here, what do you think of Dillian's comments? How he didn't really lose, almost got up before the count and such. Does he really? But did Dillian Whyte say that?
I kind of heard him make some comments like that. I mean,
he didn't really lose.
It looked pretty conclusive to me. You know what I mean? So maybe he's still feeling the effects of that punch. I don't know, man, but it looked pretty conclusive to me.
Yeah, he lost that one pretty conclusive to me too. I don't know. Maybe it's just bluff. You know what these boxers are like, man. You know, there was no complaints about that stoppage. I mean, he was out. Do you know what I mean?
I think to be fair to him, he did get up of his own volition. He did get up. Having said that, he was out cold when he hit the floor. So even him getting up, I'm sure the referee didn't think for 1 second to let him continue. So maybe, you know what that probably is? That's probably Dillian just convincing himself that, listen, man, you know what I mean? I got up and I took the punch, even though I got knocked out. But, you know, I got up off my own steam. I wasn't out cold. So he's probably using that to give himself a bit more confidence. You know what fighters are like? They're always doing that type of thing. They'll always try and take positives out of a negative. So I guess that's what he's doing there. But, you know, let's be honest, man, he was knocked smooth out. That's the bottom line, man.
Got some predictions here. Mohamed Zishan has put White 9th round KO. Daniel Latty has put Dillian in the later rounds as well. And he's saying here he was having a laugh if he thought he was getting up after that knockout. I mean, I remember Eddie Hearn said something about, yeah, he made it up before 10 or something. I was just like, look, man, he got knocked out. And I think it got proven on social media that it took longer than 10 for Dillian to fully be up. So, listen, man, that fight's done. It's all about the weekend now. Sky Box Office. This is on Sky Box Office, man. What do you think of the undercard? You got Fabio Wardley against Eric Molina. You got the debut of Campbell Hatton. You got Chris Congo in there as well. What are you going to be paying for it?
Yeah, I mean, listen, they've stacked the undercard because I feel that they thinking to themselves, I'm not sure if this is a pay-per-view worthy fight, to be honest. In fact, I'm going to be honest and say no, it isn't. So I think because of that, they probably felt some criticism coming their way. So they've tried to beef up the undercard a little bit. For me, this is still not a pay-per-view fight, but I get it. It's the boxing landscape these days. And I guess the fighters have to get well paid. We're going through COVID times, as you know. There'll be no... Will there be any fans here in Gibraltar? Any fans at all?
Yeah, there will be. I don't know how many.
Not a full house, I would have thought.
No, probably not.
So putting it on pay-per-view, you know what I mean, covers the expenses, providing people do buy the fight. I probably will be. You probably will be. Most of the boxing fans. I'm not sure how many casuals will buy it, though.
I saw some people online complaining, saying you got the 5th best against the 4th best and we're being charged pay-per-view. And they've got a point. Conrad likes the card, though. He said he loves that undercard. So,
yeah, it's a good undercard, but I still don't believe it to be a pay-per-view worthy fight. Because let's be honest, it's not the undercards that normally sell a pay-per-view, is it? It's the main event. And if you look at it logically, a lot of the pay-per-view events, the undercards can be sometimes very weak, but people buy it regardless because they want to see the two main protagonists.
yeah.
So, for example, Joshua Fury, if and when they fight, that's likely to be a pay-per-view fight. But I don't think too many people will be that worried about the undercard because they're interested in the main fight. So that's how that tends to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. For the hardcores, I think that it is like a very good show. Conrad has said here, it's not a casual friendly card, but like for us hardcores, you've got the likes of Congo on there, Cheeseman, Wardley. Do you know what I mean? It is a good show for us to watch. Ian Hamilton has said here, I really feel my age with Ricky Hatton's son now turning pro. If he has anything similar to his dad, the old Hatton fans might come back. Just saying. They're going to move him really slowly, though, aren't they, Campbell Hatton? I think his opponent, I don't know if it's true, but has his opponent got like no wins and something like, I don't know if that's not true or not, but 10 losses or something? You know what? Let me have a look now.
Yeah. No, but I've heard worse examples than that. I mean, Tommy Fury, some of his opponents are like 0 and 200 or something, aren't they? You know what I mean? So, listen, man, I mean, he's a young guy. It's his first fight. You know, he's going to get a knockover job. I guess it's how he looks in doing it, not rather who he's fighting at this stage. So I get it. You know what I mean? He's got to get his feet wet at some point. So, yeah, you know what I mean? It is what it is. I'm not expecting him to be taking on anybody good at this stage in his career, if we're being honest. It's just to get him out there for the experience, no headgear and all the rest of it. See how he copes with a big occasion. And I'm sure he'll do well. So,
Jesus Ruiz, 0 and 10. That's his opponent. But like you said, I mean, Campbell Hatton didn't have that much experience as an amateur, did he? Not at that level anyway. No. So, yeah, I understand why he's going to be moved slow.
There's a lot of guys who have kicked off their professional careers fighting guys that really and truly had no business being in the ring with them. But like I said, the first couple of fights will just be to get him used to being a professional, the smaller gloves, no headgear, you know, 3-minute rounds, you know, stuff like that, how to handle an occasion like this. So, yeah, it's all a learning experience. Like I said, we're not expecting him to be in anything remotely challenging, I would have thought, even if the guy might go the distance. But I don't think the guy's going to really come there to win. It's about how Campbell Hatton looks, really, isn't it? So we'll see.
So besides the main event, what bout are you looking forward to the most on there?
I'm looking forward to the Chris Congo fight, man, and McKinson. I think that's going to be an excellent fight. You know what I mean? I've been looking forward to this fight for some time. McKinson's talking real confident. He genuinely thinks he has a chance to win. He's not just talking, I get the impression. Congo, he's the same. I've seen this week online where he's been sparring with Josh Taylor, and I would imagine that that would have been pretty lively because I can't imagine Josh Taylor going easy on anyone. So, you know what I mean? So it could be that the work he's getting in sparring could be just as hard, if not harder, than the fight comes Saturday. So, Then again, you don't want it too over competitive because, you know what I mean, you might be feeling the effects of it. So, but yeah, man, I'm definitely looking forward to that one. That'll be a good fight because both good fighters. McKinson's confident. He's got a winning record and he's looking forward to it and you can see it. Likewise, Congo. And Congo wants to make a real run now, doesn't he? On that British title. So yeah, man, this is a really good fight.
Daniel Latty has put here, is it true he signed to Anthony Joshua as well? I guess you're talking about Campbell Hatton. And yes, that is true, bro. He signed to 258 management. That's Anthony Joshua's team. So yeah, Campbell Hatton is signed with him. I saw an interview actually with Ricky Hatton. Well, I haven't seen it yet. I just saw the thumbnail. And it was Ricky Hatton. And he was asked his AJ Fury prediction. And I'm thinking, I wonder who he's going to pick in that because, you know, he's been in the Fury camp. He's been in his corner. And he's trained with him, but you know his son's now signed with 258. So is he going to be on the fence, or is he going to? What's he going to say? I wonder. Ricky Hatton.
Oh, have you seen? Yeah, you say you haven't seen the interview.
I haven't seen it yet. No.
No, I haven't seen it either. But I would imagine he's going to try and sit on the fence and make a case for either side winning, isn't he?
Yeah.
So, but I don't blame him, man. I mean, he's in a difficult situation because he's obviously very good friends with Tyson Fury. As you said, he's even been in the corner and helped prepare him for previous fights. And with regards to Joshua, obviously Joshua signed his son. So there's an allegiance there as well. So, yeah, I would imagine he's going to straddle the fence, man, and make a case for either side winning. Which, to be fair, there is a case for either side winning, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? I mean, I see a lot of people making Fury favorite. Tyson Fury's going to win, but to me, it ain't like that, man. I don't think. I think that fight could go either way. In fact, I'm leaning towards AJ, and I articulated my reasons for that last week. I just think that he's in the right place at the right time, and I think all things coming together, where they can get a good game plan going. I think that he's got the tools and the minerals to pull it off. I really do.
Let's get a prediction for this one and wrap it up, man. Dillian Whyte, Alexander Povetkin 2, the rematch. I'm gonna say I think Dillian Whyte in 8. I do. I think that he would have learned from his mistakes in the first fight. I think that he'll apply educated pressure this time. He'll be aware of the threat that's coming back at him. He may have to undergo some adversity along the way, but overall, I just think that I can't get it out of my mind that Povetkin, until the knockout, looked like an old man, and I think Dillian Whyte would have learned from that. And I think the time has helped both people. So I'm picking Whyte.
Yeah, I'll go along with that as well. I think it's going to be a similar fight to the first one. But I think Dillian's going to be a bit more cautious. He's going to box behind the jab more. But I think at some stage he's going to hurt Povetkin. And when he does, I think he'll be looking to take him out. And I think this time he will. But I also agree with you that Povetkin will have his moments. And I could see him even dropping Dillian or hurting him. But I think Dillian will be strong enough, young enough, fit enough to hold on, to smother, to come through it. And then he will come back, do his thing. And I'm expecting him to get Povetkin out of there anytime between rounds 6 to 8. But I'll tell you this now, if it goes over 8, 9 rounds, then the pendulum is swinging back towards Povetkin, in my view. So yeah. Dillian, but he's got to get it done in the first 8 rounds.
Ian Hamilton has said here, Dillian KO 7 or 8. Will Stokes said, yeah, Whyte stops him. Big up Will Stokes in the chat, man. And Conrad has pretty much said what you said here, Povetkin by KO, but round 9. So if it goes beyond 8, round 9-ish, Povetkin territory.
Because I noticed there's been a pattern in Dillian's fights. He does tend to, the gas tank starts to blow up a little bit after about round 8, 9 onwards. He does catch a little second wind, but he does go through those moments where he's looking a bit ungainly on his feet and he's looking a bit disorganized. And I don't think you can afford that happening in this fight. So I'm hoping he gets it done between 6 and 8. But to be honest, if he got beaten again, it wouldn't be the biggest surprise in the world to me. Just saying. I'm just being real. You know what I mean?
Looking forward to that show, man, taking place on Saturday night, live on Sky Sports box office over here in the UK. DAZN streaming worldwide. So yeah, Dillian Whyte, Alexander Povetkin 2, the rematch this weekend, man. Looking forward to that. Let's talk about last weekend, though, man. The guy, Lawrence Okolie, the Source.
The Source.
He looked fantastic, didn't he, man?
Brilliant performance, man.
Sorry? The new WBO champion, man.
New WBO champ, man. Won every round. Topped it off with a superb one-punch KO. He was flawless, punch perfect. You know what I mean? I must say I was very impressed because I thought Glavatsky would give him some problems. I remember saying to you that Glavatsky's experience, his toughness, the fact that he'd been in, you know what I mean, against top-level guys and equipped himself pretty well. And this was Lawrence's first gig of this sort. I really did think that Lawrence might have to go through it to get the win. And in fact, I was saying that if it went to points, I fancied Glavatsky. But from round one, Lawrence held the center of the ring, established a great jab. That's one thing I've got to shout out Shane McGuigan for because he's done a lot of work with Lawrence. And I think the jab was integral to that win on Saturday because it wasn't just a rangefinder. It was what I call a stick, you know what I mean? There was power behind that jab. I think he reddened up and cut Glavatsky early, didn't he?
Yeah.
So he won all the rounds and then he consummated a display with a brilliant one-punch finish. When the minute that landed, man, you knew that Glavatsky was finished, man. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, I didn't expect him to look as impressive as that. So, yeah, man, enough respect. Big up to him as well. He got that right. But yeah, I was hoping that Lawrence would win. I thought he could win if it went inside the distance. I think that's what I was predicting last week. But I did say that if it went to points, I'd be favoring Glavatsky. But Lawrence, he won all the rounds, man. Every minute of every round as well. So yeah, brilliant.
I think he's come on leaps and bounds under Shane McGuigan, Lawrence Okolie, man. He has.
No doubt, man. No doubt. That sort of ungainliness and awkwardness that we spoke about last week, I didn't see any of that really. There's a couple of times when he didn't get his lead foot outside of Glavatsky's foot, so they tripped up a couple of times. But you know that kind of thing can happen when you get a southpaw in against an orthodox fighter. But overall, man, he coped superbly well. He handled the occasion superbly well as well. I mean, there weren't no fans in there, but you could just look at his body language and the way he was carrying himself right up throughout the week and going into the fight itself. He didn't seem particularly nervous. Yeah, man, everything just went really well for him, man. It was a superb night. And I have to say, man, British boxing got a big shot in the arm because prior to that fight on Saturday night, man, we've come up on the wrong end of some pretty poor displays recently, haven't we? So for him to produce a career best performance in a night like that with so much on the line, I think he deserves a tremendous amount of credit for it.
Ian Hamilton has said here, was so glad for Lawrence. He controlled that fight like a veteran and finished it epically. So much credit to Shane McGuigan for bringing out Okolie's best attributes. Will Stokes has said here, yeah, Okolie is improving like mad. Put on a clinic against the top 5 cruiserweight. And Mohammed has said here, do you see Okolie beating Bradis? Now, he called out Bradis after the fight. And you have to give the guy credit, man. Yeah. 16 fights. Do you know what I mean? And he's already a champion. He's cleaned out the domestic and the European level. And he's picked up a world title. Now he's calling out the #1 cruiserweight in Marius Bradis. Is he ready for that next?
Well, you know what? Some people would have said that he got the title fight a bit too early and that he might have come unstuck there. And look what he did. I mean, Bradis is an excellent fighter. Personally, I wouldn't advise Lawrence to go there just yet. But then having said that, the way he beat Glavatsky, I'm sure Bradis must have been looking at that and, you know, raised his eyebrows for, oh, this guy deserves me looking at him, you know what I mean? And Bradis is getting on in years now, isn't he? And he's had some 36. Hard fights himself. 36. Bradis has had a lot of hard fights. But listen, man, Lawrence doesn't need to rush. I'm sure he will have a couple of defenses before they think of putting him straight in there with a guy like Bradis. But I must admit, I do like what I see from him, you know what I mean? And I don't think the confidence is misplaced.
We got Will here. He's put, yeah, so good to get another world champ like that. Okolie has a legitimate shot at becoming undisputed. Yeah, he can do. He can do. The way he took out Glavatsky, yeah, why not? IA in the chat here, he's put, guys, do you think a win over Bradis is the biggest W of a British cruiserweight ever? Oh, I mean, hey, when he beat John Mark Mormet, that was an impressive win.
Yeah. And don't forget, David Haye did that in Mormet's own country. And Mormet was a dominant champion at that time. So yeah, man, I would think that, to be fair, Hayes' win is probably a little bit better. But then, having said that, Hayes was a very experienced guy and a top amateur. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. But, listen, they both deserve credit.
Bellew, he beat Makabu, didn't he? At Bellew.
Yeah.
Trying to think back now, man. I mean, obviously Johnny Nelson did very well to pick up a title. That was against but
yeah, we've had some good cruiserweights. Enzo Macronelli, another one. He was a good cruiserweight. We've had some good cruiserweights, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And Lawrence Okolie can add his name to that list for sure.
Conrad has said here, he says he wants to have 3 more fights at cruiserweight, then win the Bridgerweight title. So we could see him at heavyweight in about 2 years. But he said he could also have a heavyweight fight in between. That was on Raps on TV. Yeah, I saw that, man. Big up Raps on TV. Bridgerweight, yeah, that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? After cleaning out cruiserweight, if we're going to have that division, then I guess he might as well go for it in that. But Ian Hamilton has said here, I'd rather Okolie just go after Makabu just because Don King is his promoter. Imagine Eddie and Don sharing a press conference. We haven't seen that yet. I'd pay just to watch them two talk.
They'd probably be fighting over the microphone, those two. But yeah, listen, man, he's got a lot of options going for. Obviously, he's got to keep winning. You don't want to get, you know, I mean, you don't want to come too distracted by talking about other weights. He needs to make a couple of defenses of the title. Maybe lure somebody like Breedis into the ring with him. Try and unify the belts, or get as many belts as possible, and then go forward and do the next challenge. One thing I don't like to see fighters do is to go up and down in weight without beating the best at the weight class they're in first. We've spoken about that several times on this show, but it really irritates me when I see fighters doing that. They go up and down to suit them. Next thing you know, they're calling themselves 2-3 weight world champions. Fair enough. In name they are, but you've not even cleaned out your own division yet. So you've not convinced the public that you're the best in that division, and you're targeting guys from other divisions because you think that you can beat them, so you become a 2-3 weight world champion. I'm not in agreement with that at all, to be honest.
Will's put here, I really, really hope that Bridgerweight doesn't take off. I agree, but unfortunately, I think it might. I've seen that they're going to host their Bridgerweight fight soon. I think it's Oscar Rivas, isn't it? Fighting someone, but yeah. Yeah,
Oscar Rivas. I think Michael Hunter was talking about possibly going to Bridgerweight because he's a smaller heavyweight. But yeah, I must admit, it may take off. You never know with boxing, innit? It may take off. You may get a number of fighters who are maybe struggling at heavyweight to be a big heavyweight, and guys who are struggling at cruiserweight to make the weight. They might look at that as an option to pick up a strap, but I don't see it really taking off too well. Do you really? Not at this stage, anyway.
Not right now. Maybe later.
But you never know. If you get some marquee names going to that division, you know what boxing's like, man. Sometimes it's not about the belts. It's about the guys participating in the fight. So who knows?
Did you catch Maurice Hooker and Virgil Ortiz last weekend as well?
Yeah, man, I did. I stayed up late. Yeah, I got the DAZN app. I subscribed to that. And I watched the fight. I watched the undercard. I watched the fight. Great fight, man. Great fight. I was very impressed by Virgil Ortiz. I watched him on a number of occasions now. He's impressed me every time I've watched him. And Hooker, up until the point of the stoppage, well, let's be honest, he did quit, but I think it was a legitimate quit. He acquitted himself quite well also. You know what I mean? He had his moments in that fight.
I thought he fought the wrong fight. You're going in there against a guy that can punch. Do you know what I mean? He comes forward. Okay, you're coming up in weight. I'm talking about Hooker now. He's a taller man. He's got a longer reach. He can't punch as hard as Virgil Ortiz. Why are you there in the pocket trading with Ortiz? Did he get dragged into that fight, or what happened? Because I would have liked to have seen Hooker try and use his range. But then, to be fair, he does mix it up. He did that against Jose Ramirez. Didn't work out for him. But, he did have some success against Virgil Ortiz. But I just thought, why didn't you try and keep it long for a little bit longer, man? I mean, Virgil Ortiz got in straight away.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good question. And my response to that would be, one, Maurice Hooker is a fighter that previous to this has tended to be a bit flat-footed. He does tend to give up his height and fight inside when you would expect him to try and establish his jab, even move his feet, be a bit more mobile. But if you look at his previous fights, that's how he fights. You know what I mean? And he seems not to mind having a tear up, even though he's not the biggest puncher himself. I mean, I first saw him do that against Terry Flanagan years ago, you know what I mean? Where he was very willing to stand and trade with Terry Flanagan. And that was quite a competitive fight as well. So, you know, he doesn't mind going to war. He tends to make for good fights, though. But the problem with Maurice Hooker is he doesn't punch that hard. And Virgil Ortiz, who's a big welterweight, I mean, you saw before the fight that he had trouble making the weight. He's about 5'10". Mind you, Maurice Hooker's tall as well, but Virgil Ortiz is a big welterweight. But the difference between them is he punches a lot more, harder, and he's very, how can I put it, man? He's relentless, isn't it? In the way he comes forward. That body attack that he puts in, man, you know what I mean? He's brutal to the body, Virgil Ortiz. And I think when he realized that he wasn't hurting Maurice Hooker with headshots, you see him made a concerted body attack, didn't you? He was really digging those body shots in, man.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, you know what I mean? So, yeah, it was a very good performance by Virgil Ortiz, man. Very impressive.
It was, yeah. Conrad Boxing said here, do you think Usyk could go down to cruiserweight to face Okolie if the fight is big enough? Nah.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
I think Usyk probably thinks to himself, he's probably rationalizing, I've got a few more years left in the game at the top flight, and he wants to try and get one of those heavyweight straps. You know what I mean? Yeah. That would make his career complete, and I think that's what he's going for. He's going to try and create history, and why not? He's a very good fighter. And, you know, if I was managing him, I'd be encouraging him to go for that heavyweight strap as well. Whether he'll get it or not, though, is a big ask. But
yeah, you know. I mean, back to Virgil Ortiz. After the fight, you know, we saw some people in the audience. Terence Crawford was there, backing his guy, Maurice Hooker. Errol Spence was there. I mean, he's trained with Hooker before. He's pretty close with Virgil Ortiz. Plus, it took place in Texas, so no surprise to see Errol Spence there. After the fight, it was pretty entertaining as well, the post-fight interviews, man. We saw Maurice Hooker getting booed by the fans, and then he stuck the middle finger up at them. And then Virgil Ortiz, you know, he was asked what he'd like to do next. And this is what I'd like to see, and this is something that you will applaud as well. Virgil Ortiz came out and he was just like, look, man, I may not be ready, but let's fuck it. Let's do it anyway. I want Terence Crawford. He called him out.
Yeah.
He called out Terence Crawford. Crawford was looking at the ring like, nah, you're not ready for me yet. But, like, you got to give the guy credit. You know what I mean?
I do give him credit. And this is the type of thing that I've been saying for many weeks now on this show. This is what we want to see. Virgil Ortiz is that next generation coming up, isn't it? And and he's only 22, but he wants to make his mark in the game, man. And he's confident, he's young, he's strong, he's hungry, he's confident, he believes he can do it, and he's calling Crawford out. And let's be honest, man, Crawford is into his 30s now, and he's come up through the weights, isn't he? From lightweight to welterweight. So Virgil Ortiz is probably thinking, well, I'll be the bigger man in there. I'll be the younger man, possibly the stronger man. Let's make it happen. You know what I mean? If I lose, I can come back. So I love his attitude. You contrast that with someone like Ryan Garcia, who, you know what I mean, he wins in the limit.
Good friends, by the way.
Yeah, but they may be good friends, but their attitudes are polar opposites, man. And I know which one I prefer. And I suspect I know which one you prefer as well. I mean, Ryan Garcia is for the Instagram people, you know what I mean? He's for the casuals. He's for the little videos and Instagram and stuff like that. Maybe some of the younger crowd like that type of stuff. Maybe some of the young ladies like that type of stuff, man. But for fight fans, I'm pretty sure we all prefer how Virgil Ortiz conducts himself. Which is not to say that Ryan Garcia is not a good fighter. He is. And like as I've said before, that is one of the most disappointing things about all this, is because he does have serious talent. I think he actually beat Virgil Ortiz as an amateur. I remember watching that fight on YouTube. But like I said, if you look at the two of them now, man, I know which guy I'm rocking with, and it's not Ryan Garcia. But yeah, to go back to that fight with Crawford, man, listen, if they fought this year or early next year, you would have to probably put your money on Terence Crawford. But I'll tell you what, man, it wouldn't be an easy night for him. And the longer these guys are kept waiting, you know what I mean? I could see these guys coming through, the likes of him and Jerome Ennis and people like that, man. These guys are seriously good.
Yeah, got Jerome Ennis fighting in April against Sergey Lipinets. That's another good fight.
Yeah.
Ian Hamilton has said here, Ortiz is definitely entertaining to watch and always looks for the finish. His only problem is the division he's in. Maybe someone like Porter as another step up to see where he is. Maybe a Keith Thurman, maybe someone like that.
Yeah. The only slight, I wouldn't say it's a criticism, but it's just an observation that I noticed is that someone like Virgil Ortiz, he's of that age and he's of that sort of confidence that he's almost, in terms of his defense, he can be a bit reckless because he concentrates so much on attack that he doesn't really care too much for defense. That's what I saw in this fight anyway. In order to beat a Crawford, you've got to be good at both sides of that game. You know what I mean? Both sides of the coin you've got to be proficient in. So I'd like to see him develop some defensive nuances, you know what I mean, as he goes forward. But certainly in terms of his attack, man, he, like I said, he's relentless. And the guy can punch. So he's got a chance against anyone. Make no mistake. Anybody in that division, he's got a chance.
Let's get on to your boy, Terence Bud Crawford, man. He made the headlines this week. You know, he was in the headlines because he got interviewed at the Ortiz Hooker fight for, you know, I'm getting sick of talking about this now, but Crawford and Spence, you know, he was asked by your boy, Chris Mannix, about a potential fight happening. And, you know, Crawford basically threw that in the bin. He was just like, look, that's not happening. I've moved on. You know what I mean? And then Errol Spence got interviewed by Fight Hub. It didn't even look like he really wanted to be there when he got interviewed, Errol Spence. He just wanted
he looked like he was drunk to me. But
anyway, it didn't look right to me. But he was asked about Crawford, and then he was just literally like, oh, why? Why do I need to talk about him? So these two guys, man, I mean, it's getting to the point now where I'm just peed off with both of them. Do you know what I mean? And Crawford made the headlines for that, with that interview with Chris Mannix. And I also want to get your thoughts on this, man. Relatively controversial opinion here, but that's what we're all about on this show. And anyone in the comments, feel free to leave your comments as well. Now, I want to get your thoughts on this, on what Crawford said, because he said that Canelo Alvarez shies away. That was the word he said, shies away from the black fighters. And I know you've been a critic of Canelo Alvarez. So what's your thoughts on both points? Quickly on the Spence one, and then Crawford's comments about Canelo.
Right, with the Spence one, listen, man, I'm real disappointed, bordering on disgusted that that fight is not being made. And I have to say, I'm going to keep it 100 here. I blame a lot of that on Errol Spence. You know what I mean? I think that Crawford was actively pursuing the fight. He's called out Errol Spence several times. He's made it known, and I believe him. I don't think there was any capping going on. He definitely wanted that fight. Spence and the PBC, for some reason, don't want to do business. They're throwing out all these silly percentages out there, derisory offers, which they know that Crawford's not going to take. And I just think that the main problem in that fight is that Errol Spence clearly didn't want to fight Terence Crawford. To me, I think that's obvious now. I think you can see that. And I think Terence Crawford, he's obviously an egotistical man. He's a fighting man. He's in his 30s. He wants to push on with his career. So I can almost understand, although I'm very disappointed it's turned out that way, that he could be coming out and saying that, look, man, you know what I mean? I've tried to make that fight. Nothing's happening. I want to move on with my career. Because I think pretty much everyone can see what's going on there, innit? It does tend to be Errol Spence that for whatever reason, man, I'm not saying he's scared, but I am saying he's ducking, you know what I mean? Because it's to me, it's obvious. He doesn't appear to want to come to the negotiating table. He's throwing out these derisory offers, 70-30, 80-20, and all this type of stuff. He doesn't want to fight Crawford. So, yeah, I'm pretty disgusted by the whole of that. With regards to the controversial remarks, yes, they were controversial. But you know what, Daryl? I'm not going to give Terence Crawford too much heat for this, bro, because I do happen to
get a lot of heat.
Huh?
He's been getting a lot of heat.
Yeah, because I guess whenever we live in a world where wherever you mention race and color and stuff like that, there is going to be a certain backlash. People are going to interpret it the way they want to interpret it. But you know what? And, you know, some people who are watching this podcast, they may give me a bit of stick as well. But I see where he's coming from. Not to say that he's never fought black fighters because we know he's fought and beaten the likes of Danny Jacobs, James Kirkland, Austin Trout, although that was a very disputed decision. So was the Erislandy Lara fights. And I mentioned those two last because I think this is what a lot of people in the community see as a problem with Canelo, in that those two black fighters have a certain style, right, that gave Canelo problems. And I think he doesn't want to revisit those problems anytime soon. So, as I said, the Lara and Trout fights were very close. They could have gone either way. Now, when I watched the Lara fight, I thought Lara did a bit too much backpedaling. So I actually scored that fight to Canelo. But I know a lot of people thought that Lara did enough to win. With the Austin Trout fight, I genuinely think that Austin Trout could have been, especially as he was a champion at that time, that he could have been adjudged to have been a winner of that fight. What people are saying, and I do have a large degree of empathy with it, is that that style kind of spooks Canelo out a little bit. He likes the guys who stand there and engage him and don't do, you know what I mean, nothing much is coming back. He tends to like that type of style.
What about his next opponent?
Sorry?
What about Billy Joe? He's not black, but he has that sort of style that...
he does have that type of style. However, as I've said to you before, I'm not sure if Billy Joe at this stage in his career is going to have enough minerals in which to... And when I say minerals, I'm not talking heart. I just mean like the athleticism and the skills to beat Canelo. So I don't think Billy Joe's going to do it for those reasons. I think a Billy Joe of 2 or 3 years before maybe would have had a better chance. But I do see where Terence Crawford's coming from, because that's long been put out there. He definitely ducked Andrade at 154. He definitely ducked Jamel Charlo at 154. He ducked Jamal Charlo, Jamel's brother, at 160. And until Canelo has these fights, he's going to get that thrown at him, man. I'm sorry, but that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, you've just answered Jamie Payne's question there. He said, who's Bud referring to? He's referring to Andrade and Charlo in particular. Yeah. They're the two black guys. He could have just said them two names, and didn't he? Maybe it wouldn't have caused such a bit of controversy, but it's America, man. That's what America's about, isn't it?
That's right.
Go through some of these comments here quickly.
I think sorry to interrupt there. I think the point he was trying to make is that type of style is a style more used by black fighters. And I think there is a common perception in the black community, especially in America, that Canelo has difficulties with that style. And as I said before, it's almost as if he's thinking, I don't want to revisit that soon. Because if you remember as well, his only loss was to Floyd. And Floyd has that style. And Floyd beat him comfortably on the night. And we're talking about a Floyd that was, what, 34 at the time? Deep into his
37. He's 37.
Yeah. 37. Wow, there you go. And Floyd, it could be argued, didn't lose a round against Canelo. You know what I mean? So, you know, I see where that's coming from.
Yeah. We'll go to some comments here. Conrad, I'm going to get to this in a minute. I'll come back to this question. Ian Hamilton has put here, putting it nicely, them two, Crawford and Spence, they disgust me. In the week we lost Hagler, you got them two. Hagler would already be turning in his grave for them two. Spence should ask why he's in the game. And look, man, some scathing comments there from Ian Hamilton, but I hear what he's saying.
Yeah.
I see Errol Spence at the fight. I'm just like, I used to really like this guy, man. I mean, I don't have nothing personal against him, but he just didn't want to talk to reporters. He looked a bit drunk again. You know what I mean? He had that terrible car crash, which thankfully he survived. But do you know what I mean? Afterwards, the first thing he said was, no broken bones, I'm a savage. And I'm just like, that was just disrespectful. I'm just like, you've just changed, man. And like, I just don't really like how these two are acting, man. Crawford, not as much, but Errol Spence, disappointing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, listen, man, I agree with that. Listen, I agree with Ian as well. I'm, like I said before as well, I'm disgusted at the fight not being made. And, you know, I mean, I've had a go at Canelo in the past on this show, but I've also called out Errol Spence for his bullshit as well. And like I said, he seems to be the one why this fight is not happening. And like you quite rightly said, his old persona, his arrogance, his narcissism is just something that's really grating on me now. And it's something that seems to afflict the fighters from the PBC quite a lot. And I'm going to throw this one out there as well. And some of your viewers watching this podcast may not be aware, but it's common knowledge within the game that Errol Spence has a drink problem. You know what I mean? And we saw it again at the weekend. He was clearly drunk. And like you said, the way he was treating the reporters who were asking him questions, half turning their back on him, giving them monosyllabic answers. The guy's just looking like a real prat right now, man. And I'm really, you know what? I'm really sad to have to say this because I was a massive Errol Spence fan. Yeah. And also the fact that he has Jamaican heritage, which of course I do and you do. All those things and his attitude to fighting when he first come into the game, all those things endeared me to. But now, man, I find I'm really going off the guy. You know what I mean? I really am. And I'm really disappointed as well to see the fact that he's still drinking after what happened. He nearly lost his life. And he was saying that he was going to curtail all that. Well, it seems like that's gone out the window already. And he's just not showing me that hunger for the game that I like to see. I mean, contrast his attitude with what you saw with Virgil Ortiz. I mean, night and day. And it's these PBC guys, man. Him, Broner, Gervonta Davis, to a lesser extent, Keith Thurman. You know what I mean? They just get on your nerves. You know what I mean? All they do is talk, turn up to these fights with, you know what I mean, looking more like rappers than they are boxers. You know what I mean? With the big chains on and, you know what I mean? You ask them about opponents, they're telling you about how much money they got, what cars they're driving. You know what I mean? It's, man. What Ian said about Hagler must be turning in his grave, I think that's absolutely 100% spot on. You know what I mean? They do disgust me. And I'm not going to say Crawford's in there yet, although I've been a little bit disappointed with him at times too. But definitely Errol Spence, man. He's really, really let me down. Really has.
Got loads of comments here, so let's try and go through them quickly before we carry on. Going back to Conrad's comment, but which 3 fights does Crawford need to define his legacy? I'd say definitely the Errol Spence fight for one, and then become undisputed. So if he can get that, maybe fight Ugas afterwards, or if Errol Spence has already got Ugas' strap, then become undisputed at welterweight for one. That would be one fight. So Errol Spence for me. Maybe like defense, maybe someone, I mean, you got some good fighters there at welterweight, maybe somebody on the way up or somebody that's already there, like a Keith Thurman or like a, a top rate Sean Porter, maybe him. And then if you could fight, if you was able to move up to junior middle and get a title there, then for me, wow, you've really defined your legacy there for me.
Listen, I've still got Terence Crawford as my pound for pound number one as we stand right now. I've articulated those reasons on many shows before, so I'm not going to go too deep into it now. So people know why I do that. But yeah, Crawford, he's just got to keep fighting and keep winning, man, because I feel a little bit sorry for him. He's called out Spence. He clearly don't want the smoke. He called out Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao clearly don't want the smoke with Terence Crawford. And he's just got to keep fighting, defending his belts, and hopefully the big fights will open up for him. I just hope that they happen sooner rather than later, because again, he's getting into his early to mid-30s. Yeah, so there's going to come a point in time when no matter how much time he stays in the gym, he is going to start to decline as a fighter. That's just natural. So I hope he can get a couple of big fights in the next year or two, because he deserves it, man. You know what I mean? He deserves it. And people like Errol Spence are denying him that opportunity. And crucially, perhaps more importantly, he's denying the fans what they want. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I thought it was very telling that the minute that Ugas got that strap after Manny Pacquiao was stripped, immediately Errol Spence took to Twitter, yeah, I want to fight Ugas next. You know what I mean? Where was that energy for Terence Crawford? The man was talking about he wants to unify belts by fighting Ugas. Well, hang on a minute. Terence Crawford's got a strap and he's been calling you out from time. The whole world want to see that fight. And for whatever reason, you kept turning it down. Talking about 70-30, 60-40. Then you're making derisory offers like 80-20, knowing full well that Crawford, it's like you're trying to take the piss out of Crawford. So that's why I can understand Crawford. He's obviously a man with pride. He's got an ego. He's a world champion. He's unbeaten. He's thinking, I'm not going to let Errol Spence clown me anymore, man. I'm not going to let this guy sun me. I'm going to move on. Now, the problem for Crawford is that he's going to get tarred with that brush of why the fight didn't happen. You know, a bit like many years ago, Daryl, in the 90s, we had two great heavyweights, Lennox Lewis and Riddick Bowe. A similar type of thing happened there. And to me, it was Lennox Lewis that really wanted that fight. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that Riddick Bowe didn't want the fight at all or was scared, but Lennox seemed to be the one that was pursuing that fight the hardest. And he never got that fight, which would have been a career-defining fight for him. So right, everybody loses when people do this, man, apart from the likes of Errol Spence.
Let's go through these comments, man. We need to go through these. Ian Hamilton has said, if Lennox or Holyfield had said the Canelo comments, they are complaining justified with their CVs. Crawford hasn't got the names Canelo has, so for him to say it's somewhat comical, in my opinion. Go through more comments.
I respectfully disagree with that. The reason being, Canelo is in a position, a very privileged position, where he can literally fight who he wants. Crawford doesn't have those privileges, which is why I think he's being a bit salty by bringing up Canelo. But, you know, I mean, it's probably as a result of his frustration. And then, like I said, if you look at the landscape, you sort of watch certain people's shows on YouTube, you talk to other fighters, you'll soon start to see that that is a generally held feeling in America, that Canelo is seeking to avoid certain types of fighter.
Well, he went out and literally said, I'm not fighting no Mexican. He didn't really get a lot of
he didn't get, I mean, that was, what, I mean.
Imagine, like, I don't know, someone over here, like Anthony Joshua, saying, nah, I'm not fighting no black heavyweight, man. Or Fury, I'm not fighting no white Englishman.
Exactly.
You get stick for that. So I can see where you're coming from when you say that, because Canelo literally said, I'm not interested in fighting any Mexican right now, and he didn't get no heat for it. I didn't see a lot of heat for it.
No heat at all.
Nothing like what Crawford's getting now. I have to say that.
Yeah, and that's why I have a little bit of sympathy for Terence Crawford, because I think what we're seeing with those remarks is frustration that someone like Canelo can literally fight who he wants, when he wants, and whatever he does, certainly by the powers that be, doesn't seem to get called into question. Terence Crawford's out there. He's trying to make these fights. You know, I mean, I think he's genuine when he said he wanted to fight Errol Spence. He's genuine when he said he wanted to fight Manny Pacquiao. He thought he was going to get those fights, and he hasn't got them. You imagine the man's in the prime of his career, and he's thinking, boy, I can't get these big names on my record. I can't earn that type of money that I feel I deserve. He's bound to be a bit salty, wouldn't you be? You know what I mean? So, yeah, man, I have a little bit of empathy for him. I don't think it's strictly a race thing. I think he was talking more about the styles of the fighters. Because previously I've heard Terence Crawford be very complimentary towards Canelo.
No, he shows up at all his fights.
Yeah, well, yeah, but seriously, I think previously you will see, if you look back at the records, Terence Crawford has actually been quite complimentary about Canelo. But I guess, like I said, he's become a bit salty out of sheer frustration.
All right, let's keep it moving here. Jamie, I don't know what you're saying with this comment here, but I'm going to have to disagree with you on it. He's put, Canelo would smash both Charlos in the same night, and I'm a massive Charlo fan. I don't know about that one, bro.
No,
I don't know about that one.
Number one, Canelo, I mean, this is ridiculous. If he felt that way, then we would have fought Jamel at 154, and we'd have fought Jamal at 160. And as for you saying you're a massive Charlo fan, I think you're winding us up, Jamie. I think the opposite is probably the case. But there you go.
Sule has put here, big up Sule in the chat. He's put, when was Billy Joe Saunders' last quality win? Is Billy Joe's resume better than either Charlo or Andrade? Is Callum Smith's resume better than Charlo? I thought John Ryder beat Callum Smith. Sule going in right there, man.
You know what? I can't disagree with too much he says there, man. I mean, I don't think that Billy Joe has got too much of a chance against Canelo. And I do think that John Ryder beat Callum Smith. And I'm also going to throw something a little bit controversial in there. I think it was only after that time that Canelo's team saw him struggling with John Ryder that they probably thought, yeah, Callum Smith represents a good fight for us. You know what I mean? Because Canelo is, I think his career has been very strategically managed. Now, some people will look at that and say, yeah, fair play to him. He's got the best out of his career. He's made the most money. Others might look like myself, might look at that and think, okay, fair enough, but you've ducked quite a few people on the way to the top.
I think Billy Joe's resume is better than Andrade's, and that's because Andrade hasn't had the fights that he, you know what I mean?
Well,
Billy
there you
Joe,
go. That's what I'm saying.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll say that.
You can be unbeaten, and you can have a resumes. It doesn't mean to say necessarily you're a better fighter than the next man. It depends on who you're fighting, when, and stuff like that. You can have names on your record and beaten them, but those guys that you've beaten might have been at the tail end of their careers. So sometimes just looking at resumes doesn't tell the whole story.
Sule said here, Canelo would destroy everyone in quotation marks, so he doesn't even need to fight them. He's already beat them in my head. 99% of Canelo fans, that's what they say. But if Avni Yildirim gets a voluntary defense, is his resume any good? So he's basically calling out the people that are saying, "Oh, you haven't got the resume to fight Canelo," but does Avni Yildirim? So there you go.
And this is the frustrating thing I find about fans out there is that it's. I said this on your show some weeks ago as well. Is that it's almost like they've become a bigger fan of the fighter than they have of the sport. And when we get that type of dynamic, it's bad for the sport. You know what I mean? Because all you get is a bunch of fanboys just looking to elevate their guy at the expense of everybody else. And if you look back at the truly great fighters, the likes of your Marvin Haglers, your Sugar Ray Leonard, your Roberto Durans, people like that, Ali, Foreman, Fraser, you know what I mean? The list goes on. These great fighters, they fought guys in their primes that were other top fighters. So they might have taken the odd loss here and there. But that's how it goes, you know what I mean? It's almost like Canelo lost to Floyd and thought, right, from now on, I'm going to be very strategic in who I fight and when I fight them, you know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. True great fighters, man, they take on all comers, all styles.
Jamie Payne has said here, I agree on Errol Spence. Bud is such a problem for all of them guys at 147 pounds, and they know it. Mohammed has said here, so who's Errol going to fight? Sule has replied to that by saying Errol is fighting Ugas next. Crawford is fighting either Sean Porter, Virgil Ortiz, or Pacquiao. Crawford's top rank contract is up in the fall of this year. He needs to sign with Al Heyman. Yeah, but will he?
Yeah, Willie, yeah. I mean, that's another criticism I have of Terence Crawford is that when he saw that his career was somewhat stagnating or he wasn't getting the fights he felt he should be getting, at that point, he should have gone to Bob Arum and either laid down the ultimatum and said, listen, unless I can get these fights, I'm going to go. Or he had to negotiate himself out of the contract, a bit like what Floyd did, a bit like what Oscar did, a bit like what Mikey Garcia did. I mean, there's a little pattern there. You know, I mean, these guys left because they weren't getting the fights they wanted. They didn't think they was getting the proper treatment that they felt they deserved. And if I have a criticism of Crawford, is that he's allowed that situation to persist with Top Rank for too long. He should have been out of there long time ago.
Sule here leaving some gems here in the comments today. He's put here, Canelo is the A side in 4 different divisions. He dragged Amir Khan up from 140 to 155 custom Canelo weight. And the No Mexicans comment only came about when David Benavidez's fan base started. Is this you? Are you writing these comments, man?
No, but you see, when I say it, you know what I mean, I get accused of being a hater. But there's a lot of people out there that think like me.
There is a lot of people.
You know why? Because we study the sport and we see what's happening. And we're not fooled, man. You know what I mean? People can tell us certain things, man, but we see what's going on. If you're a true fan of the sport, it doesn't take you long to work out what's going on.
Okay. I've got 2 more topics I need to discuss before we go, man. One of them is quickly on Gervonta Davis. He got arrested. He didn't get arrested. Sorry, he got charged. He got hit with some 14 charges for the alleged hit and run incident that took place last year. And what's your thoughts on that, man? Not a good look for his career right now.
Yeah, I did some reading up on that. Apparently, it took place last November after his last fight. He got into some, I think he jumped a red light. He was driving some Lamborghini through Baltimore. Apparently, he ran a red light, smashed into another car. Initially, I thought that the accident, there was no injuries involved, but apparently there was. And he left the scene. So he's left the scene without providing any details. I'm also hearing he was driving on a suspended license. So, yeah, it looks like he could be in a lot of trouble.
Not a good look for Gervonta.
Let's say that because he got indicted on it, didn't he?
Yeah, indicted. So that, in English, that for England, like in America, indicted, that just means you got charged, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have to appear before a judge and stuff like that. But I would imagine America, being America, from what I know, if he delves deep into his pockets and produces the right sum of money, a lawyer will probably get him off the worst of those charges. But then, you know, we never know. We'll see. Yeah. I don't know too much about the American legal system, but based on past experience, that's how it tends to work, isn't it? Especially if you're a celebrity.
Disappointing, man. I hope Gervonta Davis doesn't go down that route, the Adrian Broner route, the looking like it's going to be the Errol Spence route. Like, and I don't want to come across as a hater because I really like these guys, man. I was really, you know, backing them on the way up, but you know, their actions, man, you have to keep it real and just say, look, for me, it's not what I like. It might be what other people like. It might be what the younger generation like, which is cool. But, you know, for me, I'm all about the fighting first, man. And I saw talent in Gervonta Davis. He still got it. And you don't want to see it go to waste. And when stuff like this happens, there's a real threat of it going to waste, especially if he gets convicted. So, yeah, not ideal, not a good look for me. Gervonta Davis, he was going to be moving up to 140 to face Barrios, wasn't he? I don't know when that was going to take place. I think that will still happen, but just not a good look in his career, man.
Yeah, listen, man, it's that PBC thing again, isn't it? We spoke about it earlier. The likes of Spence, the Charlos, Broner, now Gervonta, and Gervonta's transgressed before, hasn't he? With various things. There just seemed to be a certain pattern there, man, where those guys, they're getting themselves into trouble for a variety of different things, and they're just not conducting themselves as proper professionals. And it's very disappointing to see. I don't know whether it's the level of money that those guys are getting there. I don't know, man. But you see these guys at fights as well. And like I said before, they look more like rappers than they do boxers. So
let's go to some comments here. Ian Hamilton has put, does Crawford demand these big fights when meeting Bob? I don't know. We all know AJ has perhaps demanded Fury next, and look what's happening. Crawford maybe needs a personality transplant.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, I did highlight that. Terence Crawford, he needs to have been
a PR
man.
Probably needs a PR man.
Yeah, he does. If he's even got a PR man already, I don't know. But it's a bit disappointing from Crawford's point of view because he's in the prime, perhaps even slightly past his prime. You never know. At 33 years old, he should be getting those fights. For whatever reason, they're not happening. So yeah, man, it's very disappointing to see. I'm kind of disappointed for him.
Yeah,
you know. So
Ian Hamilton has put here that Gervonta Davis, dear oh dear, I just see another Broner. Floyd must be shaking his head, or is he the problem for Davis with how he's lived his life? I don't know. IA has put here, it's weird how Tank is around Floyd and hasn't picked up his discipline to the sport. Jamie Payne has put here, it's so disappointing. Tank has all the talent in the world, and sadly, he will be another fighter that didn't reach that superstardom due to life outside the ring. Yeah,
I can tell you of about 3 or 4 incidents off the top of my head. Street fights. There was an incident with in a gym with a former girlfriend of his. I think she had got a kid for him. He was accused there of roughing her up. There's been other incidents with him, with other fighters getting involved on Twitter. You know, I mean, the list goes on, man. And like I said, he's not the only one from that PBC camp. We've seen Broner, who is incidentally very close with Gervonta outside the ring. He's another one, got himself numerous amounts of trouble he's had. The Charlos, one of the Charlos, he got himself in trouble. There was a domestic violence case he had to contest last year. You know what I mean? It's just, listen, I'm not saying that it's only the PBC, but I'm kind of thinking to myself, why is it those guys that seem to get in the most trouble? What's going on there? Is it a kind of mindset? Is it a kind of a behavioral thing with those guys where they think maybe they're just too big? I don't know what it is, man, but what we do know is, man, that all of them seem to be getting in trouble at some point, and they don't seem to be conducting themselves as model pros.
Jamie Payne has put here, Crawford reminds me of Andre Ward in the sense they are unbelievably good, but can't sell themselves. Sule has put here, David Benavidez, his father, called Canelo out for that. Also, 80% of Canelo's knockouts came from Mexicans who box part-time. He doesn't want to fight the prepared cream of the crop Mexicans don't. Big T has put here, hi guys, keep up the good work. Thank you for your comment, bro. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you do already, man. Thank you for your comment, Big T. IA has put here, Laurie on point about the PBC. Shakur Stevenson had a similar issue and his team cut it out straight away.
I've noticed that with Shakur Stevenson, he does a lot of training with Terence Crawford. He talks about Terence Crawford being a mentor of his, and I think that's a good look. I mean, look at the difference there with Shakur Stevenson, the way he conducts himself. And listen, I know that, to be fair, Shakur had an issue himself where he got in a street altercation a couple of years ago. But by all accounts, I think he was with Andre Ward then was his mentor. And Andre Ward took him under his wing, had some words with him, and they got things sorted. And we haven't heard of anything since. So he seems to be one that's on the right track. But yeah, man, I mean, the PBC lot, it just goes on and on, doesn't it? There's always something going there, you know what I mean?
Let's close out this show with speaking about Artur Beterbiev. You know, the light heavyweight, the #1 ranked light heavyweight in the world. He was in action over the weekend. It was good to have him back. He was taking on Adam Dines. You know, it was a mismatch, but it was just good to have Beterbiev back. And, you know, he won that in the 10th round. Wasn't at his best, but, you know, it's expected considering the layoff. With Artur Beterbiev, man, I said it last week. I'll say it again this week. Do you see anyone at 175 pounds beating him? I know they're talking about maybe Smith. Bivens obviously mentioned. He's going to be fighting Craig Richards on that show in May. What's your thoughts on Beterbiev, man? Where, if you was his manager, where does Beterbiev go? You've got to go for Bivens, right?
Yeah, if I was Beterbiev, I'd be looking to try and clean up the belts. I've got to be, listen, last week on the show, I was very critical of Dimitri Bivol. I drew the ira of shame. But you know what? To be fair, you've also got to ask questions of Beterbiev. How committed is he to unifying the belts? Is he, does he appear to be quite happy hiding in plain sight, fighting guys who, let's face it, they're not very good. You know what I mean? No disrespect to Dean or whatever his name is, but he was never going to win that fight. He's just not at that level. Apparently he did come to fight though. I saw highlights of the fight and he looked like he did come to fight. But ultimately, he was outclassed, beaten, and stopped. Bivol versus Beterbiev seems to be the best fight to be made at light heavyweight. So it's disappointing to see that neither party seems to be doing their best to make that fight happen. And again, it's another black mark for boxing. The trouble with Beterbiev, as dominant as he is at the current moment, and I would maybe even have him in my lower top 10 of the pound-for-pound fighters, such as his dominance at this weight. The problem for Beterbiev, though, is he's getting on in years, isn't he? What is he, 37 now?
He's 35, maybe 36, something like that. Mid-30s.
He was 37. But anyway, he's getting on in years, okay? And he's another one. He still hasn't had a career-defining fight yet. Now, the fight with Joe Smith is interesting because Beterbiev, for all his roughness and toughness,
he's 36.
He can put down. He's 36, right? Okay, I thought he was 37. My bad. Yeah, Beterbiev can be dropped. He's been dropped a couple of times in his career. He is getting on a bit. And you know, father time waits for no one. And Joe Smith, he's not the most polished, but he's a big puncher. He's got lots of heart. And he'll come to try and win. You know what I mean? That's one thing we can say with surety. So it could be in that fight a case of who lands first. And obviously Joe Smith being the younger guy, so he's definitely got a chance. So that looks like a good fight. But ultimately, you want to see Beterbiev do his utmost to try and unify the division, clean it out.
I know he's got the obviously he's got the IBF and the WBC belt, but like Bivol's got the WBA. So yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean, man. I got some comments here. Conrad
two don't seem to be doing enough to get that fight made. You know what I mean? And that's disappointing.
Conrad has put here, Beterbiev is vulnerable. Wouldn't be surprised if Smith stops him. Big T says Ben Whittaker beats them all in 4. Now I know who Big T is. Big up Big T, man. We need to get Ben Whittaker on here at some point for sure, man. Hope you're well. But yeah, closing out. I know I said Beterbiev, but I want to get your thoughts on the show quickly before we go. It was announced this week that Derek Chisora, Joseph Parker will be fighting in May. The undercard, you've got the likes of Bivol and Richards on there. Who else you got on there? Natasha Jonas and Katie Taylor. Chris Eubank Jr. is coming back. What's your thoughts? Because I actually put out there, you know what, I'm all right with this, but I got a little bit of heat from it. Some people are like, oh, you happy with this show? Why are you happy with this? So, what's your thoughts on it? Mixed reaction.
Yeah, I've got to be honest and say I wasn't exactly excited at the fights. I mean, for example, the Eubank Marcus Morrison one, that didn't make a lot of sense to me. It's only a couple of months ago, Eubanks was calling out Jamal Charlo. No disrespect to Marcus Morrison. Now you're fighting Marcus Morrison. I know he signed up with Sauerlands. So, but he seems to have come back down to earth with an almighty bump there, doesn't he? You've gone from calling out one of the pound-for-pound champs, high-profile Jamal Charlo. By all accounts, talks are being held, is what we were told anyway. Now, all of a sudden, you're fighting Marcus Morrison in a fight that, let's be honest with you, man, it's not a fight that's going to get the juices flowing, is he? I mean, Marcus Morrison's a decent fighter, but you get the impression that Eubank beating him, it's not going to really register anything on the scales, is it? Right?
Nah.
So,
Jonas, Bivol against Richards. You know what I mean? They've got some other fighters on there. I'm
happy for Craig Richards that he's got a title shot, but he's up against Bivol. Let's be honest. So there's not much there that excites me. I mean, I'm not even much excited by the Katie Taylor Natasha Jonas fight, to be honest. I'm not.
Yeah.
It's I'm sorry to sound a bit, flat about that one, but I'm not blown away by that card, to be honest. I have to keep it real.
I'm too optimistic, I think, man. Conrad has put here, I'm all right with it, but I get it for free on DAZN. Big T has put here, Lennox Leon versus Willie Hutchinson Saturday will be a very good fight. I like the look of Willie Hutchinson for sure, man. Conrad has put here, meanwhile, Ruiz versus Areola is $49.99. Yeah, that's a joke.
But in America, they have very inflated pay-per-view prices.
Yeah, but Ruiz, Areola.
Yeah. Now, listen, I'm not trying to defend that for 1 second because I laughed at that when I saw that as well. I mean, Ruiz is another guy that I'm disappointed in him, man. I mean, he had the title, brilliant performance against Joshua. You ate yourself out of house and home for the second fight, came in overweight, got beaten pretty comfortably, really, by Joshua. And then, okay, you go back, you say you're going to remodel yourself, reinvent yourself. Okay, I've seen pictures of you looking slimmed down and, whatever. But then your comeback fight is against Chris Areola. Come on, man. I mean, come on. That fight is a bit of a joke, It seems to me like they're just going to want to give Areola a payday before he retires again. I mean, I'm sure Areola's retired about 2 or 3 times already, isn't he?
I think it's just I think they're looking at location in that fight, both based in LA, I think, or around California, wherever. And I think maybe it might be a big sell there because Areola well, maybe in the Latin market, maybe, I don't know, but yeah.
Does anyone on this planet think that Areola's going to win that fight or even put up I mean, he's a tough guy, Areola, but he's also way past his best. And even when he was at his best, he was nowhere near of the level of Andy Ruiz. So that's going to be an easy fight for Andy Ruiz. And again, not something that's going to excite boxing fans in the slightest, I would have thought.
Ian's put here, Eubank Jr., what a joke. Makes a bit of noise, now fighting a guy we all know he beats. Plus, he's open to a Brook fight. Comical career, what a joke. Eubank Jr., he's for someone who does have these kind of fights, I guess you can add the name to it as well, but he's earned a lot. He's really maximized his career, hasn't he, in terms of his opponents and the level that he's at. Do you know what I mean? Because you can call out all these names all you want, but he's actually made a lot of money from his career. And look who he's fighting in May. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is a man who's given to calling people out. He's got a lot to say about other fighters.
Yeah.
And then
about other people, man.
Yeah, and then you see the fights this one, you think to yourself, really? I mean, I'm trying not to disrespect Marcus Morrison because at one time he was seen as quite a talent and somebody that could go quite far. But I know he's had one or two problems outside the ring as well. His career hasn't quite reached those levels. I was extremely surprised to see him in with Eubank. You know what I mean? So, again, I'm not excited by that fight at all. I expect Eubank to win fairly comfortably. But if he does win, people are going to say, but so what? You see, that's, you know what I mean? That's the problem with a fight like this.
Yeah.
You know? So...
Jamie Payne has put here, I totally agree. I thought Eubank would announce a bigger fight when he signed with Cal Sauerland. Sule has put here, I'm reading Loma versus Nakatani is being finalized for the summer. Yeah, I saw that as well, actually.
Yeah. No, that's a good fight. That's a good fight.
Nakatani, yeah, I did see that.
Nakatani comes to fight, and his size dimensions, he's very tall for the weight. He's very game. He's willing. And he'll be a lot bigger than Loma on the night physically. And I think that's a good fight for Lomachenko.
Shout out to Loma, man. Do you know what I mean? He's not really, he ain't ducking the smoke, is he? I mean, you're going to say that, but like with like a lot of guys, he goes in and fights them.
No, this is a good fight for him, no doubt, man. This will be a competitive fight. And I think Nakatani will give him issues. So he'll have to turn up to win. You know what I mean? It's not a foregone conclusion. So, yeah, that's an interesting fight. I like the fight.
Conrad has put here, Eddie's put so many decent cards during the pandemic, I won't be too critical. Yeah, I agree as well. I won't be too critical. I mean, some people just like a pot at Eddie, don't they? But for me, yeah, I didn't mind the show. If you don't like the show, I've got no problem with that, to be fair. It's your opinion. I respect everyone's opinion. But yeah, like what Conrad said here, I won't be too critical of this show, man. He has, you know what I mean? He's delivered a lot over the last year or so. Well,
yeah, listen, to be fair to Eddie, you're right. He has put on some really good cards. But what I would say is this is not one of his better ones.
Yeah. I think he said he wanted to, this is Conrad, he said, I think he said he wanted to have Warrington on that card. Didn't expect him to be beaten. Yeah, that makes sense. Sule, big up Sule. He's put, I'm in America. I don't see that pay-per-view doing more than 75K buys. I'm guessing he's talking about Areola and Ruiz.
75?
He doesn't see it doing more than that.
Right. 75,000 people are going to pay to watch Andrew Ruiz beat up on over-the-hill Chris Areola. I don't even think they'll get that many.
Maybe they might beef up the undercard. Maybe they might do that. Yeah,
maybe.
He's also put here, Loma versus Tio was free, and Josh Taylor versus Ramirez will be free. And Ian Hamilton has said here, Ruiz will beat Areola, then call out Wilder, then PBC cheerleaders will sell it as the best fight outside of AJ versus Fury.
No, but you know what? Ruiz versus Wilder is a fight that I would actually like to see. That is a good fight. You know what I mean? But Ruiz, Areola, hell no. That sucks, that fight does.
Yeah. Conrad has put here, maybe Lovejoy is on the undercard, man.
The mysterious Lovejoy, yeah.
Listen, man, we're going to wrap it up for today. Another week, you know what I mean? Shout out to all of you guys in the chat that have been with us the whole way. 1 hour and 23 minutes so far. And yeah, wrapping it up for this week. Another great show. If you guys are new to the channel, that you haven't been here, you know, we do this every Wednesday or Thursday. I think maybe we should do it Wednesday now. What do you think?
I'm down for whatever, man. You know what I mean? I'm just happy to be on here talking boxing, which is my passion. And I think you've got a great project here, man. And I hope people tune in, they subscribe, smash the like button, share the video. I hope they continue to do that and get it out there, man, because I think it's a good product. For sure. Sule's put here, I'd pay to watch Ruiz versus Wilder with no complaints, and he's based in America. So, you know, fair play. I'd do it as well, to be fair. But yeah, listen, man, we're wrapping it up this week. Shout out to all you guys, man, and salute to everybody. Thank you for all your comments and all the love, man. I appreciate it. And we'll catch you guys next week, man. Peace.